Thank you, Lord, for asking me to speak at this event tonight that has been a holiday tradition in our community for almost a quarter of a century. I am honored to be here and delighted to see so many friends with us to celebrate tonight. These lights have been placed on this tree to honor someone important, recognize a new addition to a family, or remember someone special who has gone before. Each light represents a story of the past, a story of the present, or a story yet untold, but all represent a story that someone has chosen to keep alive in the lighting and in the telling. A few weeks ago, my sister drew my attention to a New York Times article titled "The Stories That Bind Us." The article is adapted from Bruce Feiler's recently published book, The Secrets of Happy Families: How to Improve Your Morning, Rethink Family Dinner, Fight Smart, Go Out and Play, and much more. In a nutshell, it reports that studies indicate that children learn resilience when they hear what their relatives before them have faced. For those of us who are lovers of oral family histories, this confirms everything we've always suspected and more. Not only does the author acknowledge the importance of telling and retelling family stories, he adds that studies have now proven that it's the secret sauce that holds families together. The single most important thing you can do for your family may be the simplest of all: develop a strong family narrative. To test their hypothesis, the psychologists developed a measure called the Do You Know scale that asked children to answer 20 questions. Examples include: do you know where your grandparents grew up? Do you know where your parents met? Do you know where your mom and dad went to high school? Do you know an illness or something really terrible that happened in your family? Do you know the story of your own birth? Psychologists asked those questions of 46 families and compared the children's results to a battery of psychological tests that the children had already taken. The results were overwhelming. The more children know about their family's history, the stronger their sense of control over their own lives, the higher their self-esteem, and the more successfully they believe their families functioned. Come to find out, the Do You Know scale turned out to be the best single predictor of children's emotional health and happiness. This was all very good news to my sister. She and her husband have 2 adopted young children, and they are busy working parents. She has often bemoaned that her family seems unable to coordinate their busy schedules to have dinner together, all the while knowing that traditional family dinners are often touted as the sole preventive for everything from children's behavior problems to substance abuse. I always feel guilty about the dinner thing, Caroline said, but this, the stories, I can do this. It helps that she has a rapt listener in her 7-year-old Olivia, who is fascinated by stories of her people. When Olivia was visiting West Plains this summer from her hometown in Houston, Texas, she requested a visit to Oak Lawn Cemetery. She did rubbings of family tombstones while I recounted stories about her great-grandparents and the many uncles, aunts, and cousins she has buried there. My 2 sisters and I were raised on family stories, mainly from our maternal grandmother, who repeated them so often they practically became legend. Fortunately, some of those are recorded for posterity on video, thanks to my father, who taped my grandmother a few years before her death in 1995. Through the magic of technology, these stories remain alive, told in her own words, her own voice, sitting in her own living room. Her stories gave us a sense of belonging and a feeling that we were bigger than our immediate family. what psychologists call a strong intergenerational self. In retrospect, this was especially important to siblings like us who grew up far away from any extended family. With a few notable exceptions, most of our family stories are humorous ones, told to poke fun at ourselves or to relate an ordinary incident in extraordinary times. Allow me to hit a few highlights. My granddaddy Newman contracted and survived the Spanish flu during the deadly epidemic of 1918. He was 16 years old. He lived to be 100, but we often laughed with him how many years off his life this illness must have taken. This same grandfather drove in an Overland Roadster from Roy, New Mexico to West Plains, Missouri in 1921. He changed 26 flat tires. The final insult came when he got to Springfield and threw a rod bearing. Like any practical traveler, he made do and fashioned a new rod bearing out of the leather from the top of his shoe, providing a temporary fix to allow him to limp on into West Plains. My great-great-grandfather Gum fought in the Civil War, the battle at Vicksburg, was taken captive by the Union Army, and was allowed to walk home to his farm between Alton and Thomasville to tend to his crops. My grandmother Paris told of her family's move to West Plains from Birch Tree in 1912. She was 6 years old and rode in a Model T driven by the family friend who owned the car. She, her 4 sisters, and her mother and father were packed tightly in the car, using bricks and blankets to keep themselves warm, while she balanced a bowl with 1 goldfish in it. The 37-mile trip took all day long. While still living in Birch Tree, she defied instructions to stay on the sidewalk while walking to school and was bitten by a wild hog. It hurt, this elegant woman recalled, and she never wandered off the sidewalk again. Individually, the stories have always been sources of great entertainment. Collectively, they tell a story of good people who loved and enjoyed their families, abhorred whining and self-pity, and never took themselves too seriously. Maybe the psychologists are right. Furthermore, maybe the benefits aren't just for young children. Knowing these stories and having the ability to lean on them served me well, both physically and emotionally, when I was faced with my recent challenges of illness and loss. Maybe those stories and the strength I draw from them are why I'm able to stand before you tonight, forever changed, but mercifully aware of God's grace and resolved to live the remainder of my life with purposeful urgency.
Just want you to know what a hard act you are to follow, my young lady and friends. I'd like to thank our board of directors that are here, our directors on our OMC Foundation, our management team. We just have an outstanding group here, and this year we are so thankful for this Christmas season. We are blessed with an outstanding team of physicians, nurses, staff, our volunteers, our chaplains, and this whole community who supports us. We have a medical center right here in our community that not only provides life-saving treatment, but other specialty services that mean our community members can receive care right here and close to home. And we are very thankful for your support in this community. You're more than just our community. You're our friends, our patients, our co-workers, our neighbors, and our family. The lights on this tree will shine in honor and memory of our loved ones and for each of you whose life has been touched by Ozarks Medical Center. It is your support of this tree that, as hospital, has helped OMC continue to grow and serve this region. The funds raised through these lights will continue to have positive impact on all of us through our services, our equipment, and our patient assistance, which is one of the most important things that we can give is assistance to our patients in need. I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us here this evening for this really special ceremony. The tree lighting is a long-standing tradition and is part of our OMC family, and it has become an annual event for many local families.